What are the latest applications of these materials under discussion? So, see, we use many types of soft materials in our day-to-day life, right? Like toothpaste, like pharmaceutical creams, cosmetic creams, and there are very, very large number of industrial pasty materials or pasty slurries whose rheological consistency needs to be maintained. So, Laponite, to be specific, but many different types of clays in general are used for kind of this purpose. All right. So these are kind of the latest applications of the material that we are talking about. Okay, Ramya, how are the attractive glasses different from repulsive glasses and attractive gels? Can the Laponite system form an attractive glass? Okay, so for this, you must first understand the difference between what is attractive glass and what is attractive gel and what is attractive and what is repulsive glass. So you must keep one thing in mind, that in order to have a glass, you must have at the time of percolation many percolation paths. All right, because in a glass, one particular particle is surrounded by many other particles. So it interacts with many other particles. It's constrained by many other particles. All right. So that is essentially a situation of glass where particle is constrained by many other particles. All right. In a gel, in an attractive gel, particle is not constrained by many other particles. It's constrained probably by at the max 2 or 3 or 4 particles. All right, but in the glass, it's constrained by many other particles. And if such particular particle is, if two particles or if the various particles which constrain that one particle, if they have attractive interactions, then you have attractive glass. All right, so that is the kind of most important prerequisite for an attractive glass compared to an attractive gel. Now, it's a very good question. Can Laponite system form an attractive glass? I believe, yes, it can form, but for that, what you need to do is that you need to have a very dense gel. If you have a very dense gel, then that dense gel and attractive glass then can become synonymous to each other. All right, that is how Laponite system may form attractive glass. Okay, now the next question is, can the proposed microstructure be visualized by any microscopic tools, or what are the evidences of the proposed microstructure? But now this particular question I already showed you, right? We showed the cryo-TM images where this proposed microstructure indeed got kind of vindicated, verified. Okay, next question. What is the difference between regular gels and Laponite gels? So first of all, you have to tell me what you mean by regular gels. If you're talking about regular gels as polymer gels, then polymer gels are network structure where network strand is made up of polymeric molecule. If you're talking about general colloidal gels, then network strand is made up of interconnected colloidal particles. In case of Laponite, the network strand is made up by interconnected Laponite particles. So from that point of view, these are all similar. All right, but you must keep one thing in mind, that the fractal dimension that we talk about is very specifically associated with the critical gel state. As material becomes dense and as it becomes very, very dense gel, its fractal dimension essentially tends to 3. All right, you need to understand this particular aspect by first going into fractal dimension theory. Okay, next question. At what volume fraction sol gel to sol glass transition occurs? What do you mean by that? So I'm going to kind of give this answer differently, because since sol gel transition is an independent phenomenon compared to sol glass transition. So in order to have sol gel transition, theoretically speaking, even at extremely small concentration also sol gel transition can occur, theoretically speaking. But in that case, the fractal dimension where the percolated state occurs will be close to 0. But for sol glass transition to occur, you must have a effective volume close to its random close packing volume fraction. All right, then only sol glass transition will occur. Okay, next question. KVS Chaitanya. Are there any assumptions made in deriving the expression relating fractal dimension and n? Very good question. Yes, of course. And there are many kind of assumptions made over here, and I will not claim that Laponite system perfectly validates all those assumptions, although it has kind of been used for many gel forming systems. That's why we also use it. And one of the assumption is that the network process is an absolutely random process when the fractal dimension is correlated with n. All right, that may not be the case in the Laponite system in principle. Although if one goes to Muthukumar's paper, then there are further many subtle assumptions that have been made, which one has to really very carefully kind of see whether Laponite dispersion, to be specific, and many other systems to which it is applied to, whether it follows or not. But still it gives you a good indication of fractal dimension at that particular state. What are applications of repulsive glass? If something like repulsive glass exists, at least I have not come to kind of any I don't have any knowledge of any other repulsive glass or any repulsive glass to be kind of very straightforward on this. But if repulsive glass exists, then you essentially have a very stiff material at extremely small concentration, by which you can actually have a stiffness enhancement by having repulsion among the particles. So that could be one of the applications of repulsive glass, but at least I have not come across any repulsive glass. If somebody has come across repulsive glasses, then you know my email ID. Please share those details with me. I'll be delighted to kind of know more about that. Okay, drug release is possible with this polymer when drug dispersed in molecular form and comes in contact with physiological media. First of all, we are not talking about polymers. I'm not really a very well, I should say, knowledgeable person when it comes to constrained drug release problem. But what I kind of understand is that if diffusion is very slow, then drug release can become very slow, and then it can continue over a long duration. From that point of view, just by virtue of extremely high viscosity of Laponite dispersion, it may be used, and I know that in some cases it has been used as a drug release agent, but I have very limited knowledge of that. And this is not a polymer, so the question as far as polymer aspect of it is misplaced over here. Yes, there are applications of clays and drug delivery, although our work is very much related to understanding the microstructure. I'm not a knowledgeable person as far as drug delivery of this system is concerned. The next question is, what are the parameters to be considered for converting a solid 3D material to a gel kind of material, and what would be its stability? So first of all, if it's a solid material, then having some kind of a motion within the solid to restructure it to form a gel is very unlikely. So let me rephrase your question, that if let's say you have a system in which various particles are mobile, then what nature of those particles could be in order to form a three-dimensional gel? And answer to that question is quite straightforward, is that sufficient concentration of those particles so that and attractive nature of those particles so that these particles essentially self-assemble in a given volume in order to form a three-dimensional gel. In principle, as I said, even for smallest concentration also gel formation can take place, but if you want to have gel formation over practical time scales, then you need to have a sufficient concentration of these materials. Next question. How can we interpret interfacial interactions between polymer and 2D nanomaterials using rheological result? How can we interpret interfacial interactions between polymer and 2D nanomaterials using rheological results? It's a very abstract question. I don't know exactly what the person who is trying to ask this question is trying to relate it to, but I suppose that what you're asking is that if you have a polymer and in which, let's say, some kind of a two-dimensional nanomaterials, let's say clay, has been incorporated, and how can you rheologically determine whether the clay has good affinity with polymer or not? It appears that is your question. All right. It's a difficult question to answer in such kind of an abstract, when asked in such abstract fashion. But the very fact that these 2D nanomaterials have dispersed well in polymer suggests that they have better affinity. I can only say up to this much. So which means that if rheologically you can very clearly distinguish between the intercalated system and agglomerated system. The very fact that you're getting behavior associated with an intercalated system or exfoliated system, which means that there is a good interfacial interaction. If you're getting signatures associated with the clusters of material, then of course it's not kind of good interfacial interaction. Okay, the next question is from Professor Tarafdar. Viscoelasticity can be modeled by fractional calculus. Could you comment on this? Yes, there is a huge literature on fractional calculus and viscoelasticity. Particularly over past 10 years, Gareth McKinley's group from MIT has worked quite a bit on that. However, I must mention that I'm also trying to understand that. If I'm not wrong, what essentially is done in fractional calculus is that by representing Maxwell model or the viscoelastic models using fractional calculus, they try to reduce the number of independent variables that can be used to model the viscoelastic material. If you understand fractional calculus, it's a fantastic way of characterizing materials. Although I must mention that I'm not really a knowledgeable person in fractional calculus. Although I know about that particular subject, I know it has huge potential. But beyond that, I'm not kind of able to comment on that. Next question is, did you measure the fractal dimension from the microscopic images and compared with that obtained from the experiments? No, we did not do that. First of all, doing cryo-TEM of a critical gel state was extremely difficult. So all the cryo-TEM images that we have shown you are in the post-gel state, where you can see the network structure, but the network may not be fractal in nature. However, there are many papers in the literature that kind of do comparison of Muthukumar's model of fractal dimension with the fractal dimension obtained from the small angle X-ray scattering, and then they found astonishing similarity in that. So I'm really glad you asked this question, because the previous question said that whether Muthukumar's assumptions really match the assumptions of the actual gel formed. So many times it becomes difficult whether those assumptions have kind of been validated or not. So one way of validating that assumption is to see whether scattering studies give identical result to that of rheological result or not. And there are many instances in the literature. We have kind of cited several such papers in our papers where this match has been observed. That also suggests that to a great point, the assumptions are also validated. Anonymous attendee, is it possible to determine the gel point of mixture containing monomer mixture? Reaction has to happen during the measurement point, and how can actual gel point? Okay, so if you're actually talking about a monomer mixture which is undergoing cross-linking reaction, then you essentially kind of carry out the same procedure that we carried out, that you apply a succession of frequency sweeps to the material and plot isofrequency tan delta as a function of time, and you will find that the isofrequency tan delta points absolutely kind of uniquely meet at one point, and then they bifurcate. That point is the critical gel point, and knowledge of that N will also give you the information about the structure, and that is the way you can kind of get information about the bulk synthesis. Absolutely, you can do it. Many people have done it. There is huge literature on it. So you can definitely kind of study that. Okay, can we check gel structure or glass structure by measuring Pine effect? I am not aware of it. So I'm sorry, I'm not be able to kind of comment on this, because I have not come across any such kind of validation. I myself need to kind of search on this particular aspect. The next question, how much temperature using for cryo-TM technique, is it thermodynamically affected to the structure? So you essentially use cryogenic temperatures, means liquid nitrogen temperatures. And what you essentially do is that you instantaneously freeze the structure by cooling it to cryogenic temperature, which is liquid nitrogen temperature, so that the frozen structure's image is taken. So we assume that during the freezing process is so fast that structure does not change during the freezing process, and we essentially kind of get to see the actual structure. The next question, as this can be used for pharmaceutics as well, do they have any side effects? So you mean to say for Laponite? I am not really kind of any agent of Laponite company. As far as I know, Laponite is an inert material. But whether it can be used for pharmaceutical, particularly pharmaceutical over-the-skin products, I know it has been used. Whether it can be used in any pharmaceutical product which has been taken in the body, I do not know. You need to talk to the company. My question is, as Laponite swells in water, how will it affect its rheology? How single Laponite particle swells apart from water residing within the stacks, leading it to dispersion. By the way, Laponite particle is a very hard inorganic particle. It does not swell. It only forms a network structure in water. So simply kind of forming network structure in the water, you get to feel that it swells, but actually it does not swell. From that point of view, it is very different from the polymeric gels, which essentially swell by taking water inside. All right. So there is a significant difference in that. Here, simply particles go away from each other and eventually meet each other and form a percolating network. So that is how essentially we call it swelling of Laponite. Have you tried any experiment involving temperature variation and show its effect on sol-gel transition? Yes, we have done huge amount of work with respect to temperature variation. So typically what is observed is that temperature leads to accelerating this effect of sol-gel transition. So sol-gel transition occurs at much lesser time when experiments are carried out at higher temperature. Why? Because the interparticle bond formation between Laponite particles is really dependent on how fast Laponite particles can meet each other. So at higher temperature, you essentially have greater thermal motion of the Laponite particles, greater Brownian motion of Laponite particles, by which they meet at kind of, they collide at much faster rate at higher temperature, leading to gel formation, which is faster. Other examples of repulsive gas other than, forget other than, I do not know any example of repulsive gas. So again, my appeal to everybody, if you have come across any repulsive gas, please share it with me. At higher pH value, Laponite particle acquires negative charge around the edge. In that case, will it go in a gel state or a glassy state? An excellent question. Yes, we have done these experiments. At higher pH, the whole Laponite particle forms becomes negative. But that has to be pH beyond 11, means pH of 12, pH of 13. At that pH, the material has such a huge amount of sodium hydroxide or ionic concentration that even though the whole Laponite particle is negatively charged, all its charges are screened and the van der Waals interaction essentially kind of dominate, and you still get a gel. But that gel is due to now van der Waals interaction and not because of the electrostatic interaction. The next question is, what is the impact of your research finding in the practical application of Laponite? If someone is using Laponite for plant tissue culture media, the increased gel strength salt concentration is to be increased, or Laponite concentration of increased, or both. In practice, in place of gel, glass is formed. Is there will be a problem in industrial products? First of all, glass never gets formed. As far as our work is to be believed, glass is a myth as far as Laponite is concerned. Okay, so let's kind of completely leave that possibility out. That is point one. Second point is that your question itself gives you an answer. So by changing concentration of salt, you are not really changing structure of Laponite system that is essentially formed in your industrial product. What you are essentially kind of changing is kinetics, but only by changing the concentration of Laponite, you are changing the structure of that particular Laponite.
All right. So this is one very important aspect, one very good insight that you can get from this particular work. The second kind of the tertiary or the secondary and tertiary essentially insights are that if you are kind of looking for some kind of a transport in this particular system, heat transport or let's say electricity transport, of course it's aqueous solution, so electricity will get transported by the aqueous media itself. But if you're carrying out, let's say, some kind of a dielectric spectroscopy or something, the interconnected aspect of Laponite will give you a very different signature than if it would have been otherwise a non-interconnected structure. All right. So these kinds of insights that you will get from this particular work. All right. Next question. In the regions reported as repulsive glass, you have been able to successfully show, thank you for acknowledging we have successfully shown it, successfully show that they are gels. In the regions reported as gels and the boundaries, what are your findings? Are there any interesting non-intuitive observation, especially at the boundaries? First of all, as you go on increasing concentration of Laponite, what you essentially get is very dominant gel formation. So we did not kind of come across any boundary where gel formation does not take place. That is point one. Point two is that there indeed is a boundary shown which essentially differentiates between sol and a gel structure at about 1 weight percent of Laponite. What happens is that if you have slightly higher concentration than 1 weight percent, then it takes around 4 to 6 months to form a gel. But if you have, let's say, concentration less than 1 weight percent, then what happens is a very interesting phenomenon occurs, is that the sedimentation of Laponite particle occurs to such an extent that Laponite forms around 1 weight percent of region where you form a gel. Other part remains lean in Laponite. The rich Laponite phase has around 1 weight percent of Laponite, which also formed gel after a very long time. So this is actually kind of how we define the phase boundary associated with 1% and less than 1, above 1% and less than 1%. The type 1 gel and type 2 gel that we talk about are very subtle issues. All right. And we have rheologically distinguished it. People have kind of observed differences using scattering studies also. The answer to that question will not be that kind of straightforward to finish in few minutes. So I suggest that you look at our papers to understand exactly what leads to that change in boundary between type 1 gel and type 2 gel as we have proposed. Can we apply stress as a cosine function and attain strain function as negative sign function? If yes, what would be physical significance of that particular negative sign? You can very much do that. And we also do that rather than applying stress, we apply strain. All right. See, but you must keep one thing in mind, that irrespective of whether you use stress as a independent variable or strain as an independent variable, the delta, which is a material parameter, is not decided by the independent parameter that you use in your rheology study. So even though you may use stress or strain, the delta that you will get will always be same, irrespective of which independent variable that you have used. All right. Only thing that you must keep in mind, that whichever sinusoidal input you give should not affect the macrostructure. All right, that is the most important thing. Otherwise, all that negative sign and all these kinds of things is taken care by the mathematics of it, and what you get is the response function. In this case, the delta is the phase angle, or tan delta is the response function over here. That is independent of the way experiment is carried out if the gel structure remains intact. Okay, are Laponite gels shear stable? Would they retain their network in presence of other particles? If so, would the particle size be important? Okay, all are good questions. It's not shear stable. Okay, you can break Laponite gel, but when Laponite gel gets broken, it does not get broken to the individual particle level. It gets broken to a cluster level. All right. So if you kind of break a recently made gel,
then it again goes back to a liquid state, and then it takes a while again for it to undergo sol-gel transition. But if you kind of shear a very old gel, then immediately after shear stops, it will form a soft solid-like state. All right, which means that as time passes, the bonds between various Laponite particles start becoming more and more powerful, or more and more kind of energy intensive. All right, so yes, these bonds can be broken by shear, but not all bonds break, and therefore you do not kind of get shear induced reversal of the structure completely. Okay, so that is answer to your question 1. Would they retain their network in presence of other particles? Yes, they will retain network in presence of other particles. We have done a lot of work with different particles and Laponite, and whether the particle size will important or not of the other particle. Well, if the water and its Laponite concentration in that water is above 1 weight%, then the size of that particular particle will not be important. Although there could be a situation that if that particle is charged, which is the other particle, then that particle can itself have some kind of interaction with Laponite particle, and it may lead to very rich behavior. What grades of Laponite are you using? Whether it is a sol forming or a gel forming. Of course, we are using a gel forming grade. Sol forming grade has a sol forming chemical in it, which are essentially the pyrophosphate salts present in it. If you use sol forming grade, you will never be able to form a gel, because that pyrophosphate, which is extremely negatively charged, they occupy the edge of Laponite, and you essentially do not get a gel formation. As the difference lies between the use of dispersing agent, the difference lies between the use of dispersing agent for gel forming Laponite even at low concentration. As the difference lies between use of dispersing agent for gel forming Laponite even at low concentration. I'm trying to understand your question, but essentially answer to this question is embedded in the answer to the first question itself, that if the dispersing agent is gel retarding agent, such as various pyrophosphate salts, multivalent negative salts, then you'll not be able to form the gel. All right. What happens with lower and higher pH on tan delta character? So the tan delta character is very is associated with the nature of gel formed. All right. So if pH changes the nature of gel, then tan delta will be dependent on it. For example, when we work at very high pH, when the whole particle is negatively charged and you get instantaneous gel formation at, let's say, pH 12 water, if you add Laponite, then you get instantaneous gel formation. We cannot even measure that sol-gel transition in rheology, using rheology, because before we put that sample in rheometer, gel formation has already taken place. But as far as the tan delta is concerned, what we observe is that the tan delta, particularly tan delta, is nothing but n pi by 2, and that tan delta is tan n pi by 2, and that n essentially goes on decreasing with increase in salt concentration of Laponite. So that is essentially kind of behavior occurs with change in concentration of Laponite. I guess we have done effect of pH on tan delta, and if I'm not wrong, tan delta at the critical gel state, and if I'm not wrong, over a major region of pH, the tan delta remains unaffected by, at the critical gel state, it remains unaffected by the pH, except very large and very low pH. Can this material be used for control release delivery of volatile organic compounds? It has been used for control release of drugs, but of volatile organic compounds, I am not aware of it. My work is very, very closely related to understanding microstructure of this particular system. So I'm sorry, I'm not kind of knowledgeable to answer that question. Can we estimate stiffness of gel or glassy state using rheology? Yes, of course, yes. Stiffness means we can measure the mechanical properties like modulus. We can measure different kinds of modulus. We can measure viscosity. Rheology is essentially kind of to do that. Kantesh, on slide 21, how the gel showing constant tal delta is different from gel with increasing frequency in gel. How the gel showing constant tan delta is different from gel with increasing frequency in gel. Is it due to different concentration of laponite? So essentially what has been asked in this particular question is that the critical gel state is the state where tan delta is independent of frequency, but as gel becomes consolidated, its tan delta decreases with increase in frequency. All right. So and when it comes to sol state, tan delta essentially kind of decreases with decrease in. I need to kind of confirm this particular here. So page 21. Yeah, so tan delta decreases with increase in frequency is sol, tan delta increases with increase in frequency gel, and its independent is critical gel state. So you can actually very nicely show it using rheological constitutive equations that in the network like of state, you can actually get a signature where tan delta increases with increase in frequency, and that is how it is kind of related to the gel state. It is not due to different concentration. Please note, concentration is identical in all these cases. What is really different is that no network in sol state, the only percolated fractal state when tan delta is independent, and dense network when you have increase in tan delta as a function of frequency. Laponite used was semi-crystalline or amorphous. By the way, is everybody there when I'm talking? Because it's 6:15 already.
Yeah, Professor Joshi. So I think we have still 100 participants there.
Okay, perfect. It should not happen that I'm just talking to myself. So I'm just checking.
Yeah. No.
I'm perfectly
So
fine.
yeah,
I can stay here 1 more hour. Absolutely not an issue.
So please take the last 3-4 questions, and it's fine because you are also having. Like we are running out of time.
No. If ACS has no problem, I'll take up all the questions. Let me at least see all the questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Laponite use was semi-crystalline or amorphous. How the results will be affected by these two grades? First of all, laponite is a single molecule. It's a cluster. As I said, there is nothing like semi-crystal. It's actually a crystalline material. It's not amorphous. So I'm not aware of amorphous laponite. So I do not know if such grade exists, how it will lead to any kind of difference. My XRD results seem to show that these two nature of different grades. Please comment on above statement. You need to contact laponite manufacturers. If you are getting amorphous signal in your laponite, particularly using wide angle X-ray scattering, then there may be some issue with laponite. I do not know what is source of your laponite. If you have made laponite in laboratory, then there could be some issues associated with that. All right. But if you have obtained laponite from the manufacturer, which is the only manufacturer is big, then you need to get in touch with them. I have not come across amorphous laponite. But if you think that amorphous laponite is a real state and it has been reported somewhere, please write to me. I'll be very happy to understand it myself. Is there any characteristic coupling parameter, that is Coulomb coupling parameter, other than the force law to describe viscoelastic rheological fluids? So viscoelasticity in a material occurs because of supramolecular structures. All right. It can be any structure that tends to save energy as it is undergoing deformation tends to be viscoelastic. So it can, that energy storing structure can occur because of variety of reasons. Can occur because of covalent bonds, can occur because of electrostatic bonds, can occur because of van der Waals interactions between the constituents. The requirement for viscoelasticity is presence of a structure that can save, that can store energy over a finite time period. Okay, that is the requirement of viscoelasticity. If that energy storage occurs over infinitesimal time scale, it's a viscous liquid. If that energy storage occurs over infinite time scale, then it's a elastic solid. All right, that is how you can describe. The origin of that structure can be anything: covalent bond, Coulomb interaction, van der Waals interaction. It can be anything.
At very low concentration, how good is DLS compared to TEM or actual particle size in water? Irrespective of concentration, the length scale explored by DLS are significantly kind of different than the interparticle length scale associated with Laponite. So DLS does not really give you any explicit indication of the structure. What DLS can do is that it can give you idea about the time scales, and from the time scales you can infer about the structure, irrespective of how low or high it is. All right. As far as TEM is concerned, well, if you can, there is somebody who can do good TEM, then irrespective of the particle concentration, and if it's in right particle size domain, you should be able to kind of do TEM of that particular material. Kantesh, how strongly will the dispersion change by adding any organic chemical, says alcohol? Excellent question. What is typically observed is that if you add any water soluble organic compound, let's say acetone or alcohol, then it acts similar to that of addition of salt. It expedites the salt-gel transition. All right. There are several papers where people have studied this, although not much, I would say, critical work is available on this subject. But yes, the salt-gel transition gets expedited as you add the organic water-soluble compounds. Okay. If the gel formed throughout van der Waals attraction at high pH means it is stable. Yes, it is very stable gel as a matter of fact. And Laponite gel is so stable beyond 1 volume percent, sorry, beyond 1 weight percent, that it remains stable for years and it consolidates. Its modulus goes on increasing. As a matter of fact, I have some gels in my lab which are several years old, and several years old gels, you find that their stability essentially is kind of gets affected because they crack in between, but the gel property does not change. Okay, can we use Laponite for gel electrophoresis? See, Laponite is used in aqueous environment. All right, so you must keep that in mind before kind of talking about electrophoresis of such kind of materials. Laponite has also been used in organic media by coating the Laponite particles with friendly organic molecules, and people have done electrophoresis in that particular case. How can we change pH of aqueous Laponite solution? Just by acid or else by basic aqueous solution? Do you feel it will affect properties of particular application, particulate application? It's an excellent question, and you should study our recent work. We are also writing one manuscript at this moment on this particular topic. What we observe is that over a pH range of 4 to 10 of starting water, if you add Laponite in it, its pH always goes and stabilizes close to 10. Okay, so if your pH is above 4 up to 10, you add Laponite and its pH will kind of stabilize. pH of the dispersion will get stabilized at around 10. If it's below 4, then of course it disintegrates the Laponite particle. It's greater than 11, then of course because of negative charges some other effects occur. All right. So that's a very good question, and it's a very, very interesting phenomenon that occurs. pH of the dispersion, pH of the original solution, original water, and how Laponite affects it directly determines the edge charge of Laponite. Do you feel it will affect properties for particular application? Yes, it will affect, because if you really want to kind of work with Laponite and low pH, then you may not be able to do that, because Laponite tends to kind of stabilize pH at around 10. Only Laponite are able to form gel. What about other clays? Oh, many clays form gel. Laponite is just one clay. There are several there is a host of clays that form gel. Laponite is just one of the family members of that particular clay. But why Laponite is interesting? Because it has very very narrow distribution particle size. That is not the case with other clays. Other clays have very large size distribution. Okay, sir, have you investigated this system using rheosals? No, I have not. Please join my group. I would really like to do that.
Sir, have you checked the same findings, by the way? But there are other people who have done that. So it's not that nobody has done that. I have not done that. Sir, have you checked the same findings using different solvent instead of water as dispersing medium? I mean, does solvent has any effect on gel or glass formation? As this question has been repeated, as I said, that if you add alcohol or acetone, then gel formation get expedited. Large change in size of laponite particle was seen in polymer laponite composite as compared to pure laponite. What might be reason behind this? The commercially available laponite only has one size. So I do not know what you mean by large change in size of laponite particle is observed. If you have any kind of reference that suggests such thing has happened, please share it with me. I know only one size laponite particles available in the market. I should say two sizes. One is around 25 to 30 nanometer and other one is around 40 nanometer. But no other, there are different size laponite particles available, but not commercially available. And now, second last question is that, are these structures dynamic? I meant to say attractive gel and the repulsive glass structures. First of all, there is nothing like repulsive glass structure. An attractive gel structure is indeed dynamic. The gel keeps on consolidating as a function of time. Gel keeps on becoming more and more strong as a function of time. So yes, the structure indeed is dynamic. And final question is, if we break the structure at some point, do they form again? Yes, they do form again. If you break the structure, then the structure heals itself. Okay, it definitely happens. Okay, so that kind of leads to the last question. Thank you so much, all of you, for your interest. And if you have any further questions, my email ID is available. I'll be very happy to answer your questions offline. Thank you so much again.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Joshi, for such an illustrative talk and discussing the rheology of suspension of phase behaviors. So the lecture must have inspired many young researchers. We got several messages in the chat box and they were suggesting how they have enjoyed the session. To update you, we had more than 150 participants in this particular session, and we'll be posting this recording of the session after a few edits on the ACS India page soon. Regarding the participation certificate, we'll be sending it to the attendees after this session is over. And finally, I would like to thank everyone once again for their time and for their wonderful participation. So we'll be back with another exciting talk in the next week. Till then, stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you so much, Professor Joshi, for taking your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you. Please take care during these difficult times, and we may meet in person at some appropriate occasion. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you very much.